America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. This evening we have a COVID-19 update from our town administrator. We have a discussion on Oak Hill Road and Collins Road access, the salt shed RFP to review, and then we'll have other new and old business.
And through this, we haven't restricted anybody's ability to come into the office, like for the, like any of our meetings, right?
Not for this meeting, but I believe planning board had done their last meeting via Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
whether they, and it was publicized, and then,
And that was all remote,
yeah.
because I was a part of that.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
I'm Dave Welch.
Hi,
Hi.
you're welcome to sit down.
Sorry to interrupt you guys.
Not a
You're
problem.
not.
So excited to.
We're just waiting for our administrator to come back.
We can wait outside.
No,
No,
have a
It's
seat.
a public meeting. There he is.
Yeah, I forgot to unlock the.
Oh. You wanna give us an update on the COVID-19? I see the survey results from NHMA.
Right, so there was 3 new executive orders issued this week from the governor. And the first document that you have under tab 1 is the survey that we participated in last week for the New Hampshire Municipal Association on what the financial impact was to municipalities. And these are the results of that survey. About a little more than half of the NHMA members responded and contributed to the survey. And there's, when you tally everything up as far as additional expenses that towns are incurring managing the COVID-19 issue, as well as the other side of it, which is lost revenues because vehicle registrations and people are paying tax bills late, things like that, that revenues are down for communities. And people are certainly concerned about what revenues at the state level are gonna mean to state aid coming into the communities as well in several different categories, including like the room and meals tax, things like that. So this is adding up to tens of millions, maybe even $100 million worth of shortfall for the municipalities in New Hampshire. So,
I think one of the, have received an email correspondence from our State Senator Mrs. Levesque about what we can ask her to advocate for how our town is being impacted. And I guess without knowing what our revenues have been based on motor vehicle registrations online, because we
Right.
do have that, the anticipated tax revenue, I'm thinking when the tax bills do go out, as long as we stay on course, do you see any impact for us?
well, the risk that we have is, I think we're estimating around 80% of the tax bills come from escrows at banks. So, for us, it's has less of an impact than some other communities. But the remaining 20% is is questionable, depending on what people's personal situation is and whether they're still employed or out on unemployment or been furloughed or some other, aspect that has affected their household income, that there is certainly some risk that people are gonna have some difficulty, being able to pay their bills by the July 1st, due date.
But I think from a cash flow point of view, from the town, as long as we're maintaining that revenue from the taxes, I guess the one that I'm really concerned over is not so much the revenue that the town collects via motor vehicle registrations or property tax, but what the state's position is going to be on funding the highway block grant, the rooms and meals tax that we depend on. In addition, the anticipated funding that additional funding that they were going to provide this year.
So all of that has yet to be answered. Everybody is concerned that the rooms and meal tax revenue is gonna be lower this year for all communities, just because the state, we rely on tourism, and that's basically come to almost a standstill. But the governor hasn't really addressed that as of yet, and I think that's something that the municipal association is still advocating for, looking for some answers to some of those questions, but we don't have them. And while they committed to for us, the additional $75,000 and change in surplus revenue that we got last year, they were supposed to match it again this year. Nobody has a clear answer on that yet, whether that's going to become a reality or not. So, if you look at these survey results from the other towns, everybody is looking to tighten their belts, looking at the possibility that at some point during their fiscal year, they may have to furlough employees. And I think right now, while we're doing fine, it's potentially going to be an issue in the next few months. And I think the revenue that we get from tax collection, property tax collection is going to be one thing, but as you mentioned, we rely on the state for several sources of funding, and if they're not able, I don't know what formulas they use to calculate that, but if they're not able to come up with the revenues by some fashion, then we can probably start to expect a shortfall on some things. But it's hard to measure right now.
I guess we're gonna, excuse me, I think the largest one that I guess we'll have to keep an eye on and communicate with Peter on is the highway block grant.
Yeah.
Because we rely on that for the road maintenance, so if that's something that's not gonna come in as planned, then we'll need to probably put off some of the work or costs associated with it. If there are any other issues anybody has here regarding things we would want to have Senator Levesque know about, I think it may be worth responding to her inquiry that came through.
Yeah.
Other than those items, anything?
No, I think those are just, getting some security on those pieces would be the biggest part of it.
So like the block grants, is that specifically just like maintenance, or does it go towards the construction, like the new pavement and?
No, it does not go towards rebuilding the roads unless, in the past, if we've gone out to bid the reconstruction of the roads, and let's say we have $600,000, and it comes in at 610 or 615, then we'll say, hey, why don't we take some of the highway roadblock grant and use it to complete the roads.
Okay,
But we don't say, well, we're gonna take the 125 or 140,000 that we get and put that towards the reconstruction.
yeah. Yeah, so it
Because,
just sort of fills in some of the gaps and.
well, it fills in, we don't budget for, road salt or gravels or culvert materials and stone and gravel for the roads. That's, money comes from that highway block grant funding.
Okay,
That's why I'm trying to address is that if, because that highway block grant funding is gonna be so low because it comes from the gas tax, that we need to be sure that Peter's aware. Don't go out and start buying things that we may not have the funding for at
Yeah.
this point in time.
Until we can look down the road and see where else we might have to trim.
so I'm assuming that that's been in place for a long, long time.
The highway
Cause
block grant?
yeah, 'cause most
Oh,
things
yeah.
are budgeted for, and the fact that that's not even budgeted for anymore. Like those things, like the gravel and like all the repair materials, like, cause we look forward to that money every year.
Right.
Yeah, and become dependent upon
And
it.
the state tells us this is what you should be anticipating you're gonna receive next year.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
normally around 150,000. So I mean, I think a couple years ago it was like 156, and but it's generally right around $150,000 that we have.
Hmm.
Scott, you'll let Peter know.
I will, yep. Talk to him in the staff meeting tomorrow.
Emergency orders?
Yeah, so the emergency orders, basically most of them, first one was around, really long-term care facilities. And, the second one was just an extension of the remote education, executive order for K through 12. And, the third one was again around, mostly critical care, for COVID patients in certain populations.
Did anything new come out today? I saw he was having a conference.
I did not
Okay.
see anything late in the day, but we have so much information coming at us right now that you walk away from your desk for 5 minutes, you come back, there's 12 new emails from Homeland Security, so.
All right. Oak Hill Road, Collins Road access.
Right, so under tab 2 is some of the information that we have on hand here. And I don't know the full history myself on this, but from what we could dig out of the files is that at some point, I think it was back in 2002, there was an easement, an access easement created that really addressed emergency access for the town from Oak Hill Road to Collins Road. And there was a 50-foot easement that the town had, not just for emergency access, but just a general easement through to Collins Road. In 2008, there was a release of access easement document. And basically, that gave up the general easement, but retained, from what I can read, still retain the right of emergency vehicle access over and across Oak Hill Road from Collins Road to Cone Road. So the emergency access is still in place as far as I can tell. And right now, you have the Jersey barriers across the road that would prevent any emergency vehicles from getting through there. Now, the fire chief said that just because of the condition of Oak Hill Road, that she would be unlikely to use Oak Hill Road to get to the Collins Road houses anyway. She would still use the Perry Road access to Collins. So, you know, how critical the emergency access is based on the overall condition of Oak Hill, I think becomes somewhat limited, but nonetheless, the Jersey barriers would appear to violate the emergency agreement that's in place today. The documents behind that particular one, there was actually one from 2002, and I think that was the original private road maintenance agreement for Oak Hill, but it also deeded the rights to certain Collins Road lots to have perpetual rights to use Oak Hill Road in return for participating in the maintenance and snow plowing of that road. And then behind that, that was further modified, and I think there were some additional lots impacted in 2005. San Ken Homes had another common driveway easement. And, you know, basically that's, I think, what they call the Collins Road extension. And then right behind that, there was a Mr. Russo who lived at 91 Oak Hill back in 2013. And this was in the file, so I thought it might have some relevance to the discussion tonight on what some of his concerns were at the time about Collins Road people basically using Oak Hill, which is a private road, as a, you know, cut through, you know, basically treating it as a public way. And I guess there's certainly some civil issues here between the neighbors that would have to be worked out, that has nothing to do with the town per se. I think the issue for the town of New Ipswich is really the emergency access easement and whether you would like to have that enforced.
I think that the Jersey barriers have to come out. We have, and I was on the board back in 2005 or something when we signed that, because I believe the original one, and I'm just doing this from memory, only pertained to lots prior to the actual Oak Hill, which was developed by Mr. Aho, I believe. And council reviewed it and said, you know, they're asking for this to be a private road. That's what we need to do, that we don't have it as a public road because we didn't have that easement. So that's why the document, the most current one, which released the access easement for public road, but still retain the right to use it for emergency vehicles. And whether Chief Lund uses it or not, that's her prerogative, but we have ambulance, we have police that need to have access up there. And I'm thinking if there were a fire even at the lower part of that road, we would want to have emergency vehicles there as soon as possible. Since we do have this access easement, I think we should send out a certified letter to them, giving them, you know, a 3-day notice to remove them, and if not,
So that goes to all the Oak Hill Road residents?
if there is not a point of contact, it should go unless we know who it is that
We don't
put the
know,
bird.
just
Okay, we don't
it's been
know.
alleged, but we
Okay.
don't know for sure.
I think somewhere we saw photographs of it, so.
Yeah, I sent you photographs.
Yeah,
I went down.
yeah.
don't know how this goes, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to stand up, say who I am.
Just raise your hand.
Okay. I'm Dave Welch, and actually, I've been in contact with some of you. I did speak further with Chief Lund today, and she had said that she assured me that she could get to my house if there was a fire, which made me feel really good. But she had said that, I had said, what about the houses right on the cusp? So they put the barriers up maybe 50 feet, about 100 feet from the top from Collins. But those two houses at the top of that hill can't be accessed, and she agreed.
Yeah.
And she had said that if you wanted to call her, you could.
And I don't need to, because
Okay.
based on, she's the fire chief, how she sends her trucks is up to her. As the Board of Selectmen here, we have to recognize that we have an emergency access right on that road, and there's nothing in there about it being barred. Now, if the residents that own that private road are concerned with public access, they have other means to guard against that. Blocking the road is not one of them.
Agreed. Thank you.
Gentlemen?
No, I agree. It's one of those things. It's, reading through different things. There may be reasons, but that's not the way to do it. Plain and simple. There's for safety reasons, and for legal reasons. It's just not the way to go about it.
Agreed.
Sharon Rach,
Yes.
this is the fire chief, I'm listening.
I saw your picture. I didn't know if you were listening.
Oh, it's only come through.
Hang on one second, Meredith. Hang on.
So much for lying, right?
Now you did it.
There you go. There you go.
Voice line 2 items off.
No.
That's not Meredith.
No.
On.
Did we have trouble
Central
playing it
access
through the
mode,
TV
voice
before?
line on.
I think it only came through the
ATM on
computer.
PIBC.
Okay. All right. Let's see if.
Try again, Meredith. Meredith?
No, she's only coming through here. That's all right. Go ahead.
I can't hear
Now,
her.
can you hear me?
No.
Oh, boy.
How about now?
And this isn't my computer, so I'm. Let's see if we can get the volume here.
Is the F6 key or something adjust the
It's-
volume?
It's at- volume's
It's
at
at 100%.
It's at 100%. Oops.
Oh.
Now you did it.
There we go.
You want me to call the extension?
No, go right ahead. We're gonna have to be real quiet. Go ahead.
I can call the extension.
Yeah, we can have her call in.
Go ahead.
Call the extension?
Yeah, 452.
Is there a sign at the end that says it's a private road?
Yes. Well, there was. I don't know if it's still there or not.
They
There used
pulled
to be
down
one.
the
Depends on
show,
which end.
and then they added 2 new signs this last week. This
There
is-
used to be one on the Goen Road, and that said it was
Just
a
hit
private
speaker,
road.
the middle button on the right.
They literally pulled down all those signs. And
Did they?
2 brand new ones that said.
Hi, Meredith.
No pet, no
Yeah,
through.
hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Brand new signs.
So,
Yeah.
although in speaking with some of the neighbors, I said we would probably never go up Oak Hill, I still think that we need to have that emergency access open, in case we can't ever get through from Collins Roadside or to the other houses. So I am not in favor of leaving it blocked off, and I'm not because I'm saying that we would never go there, it should stay blocked. I think that as a town, we need to have that emergency access open.
Good. Thank you, Meredith.
All right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that because it made it sound like I didn't want it open. I do want it open.
All right.
Any other comments?
Sounds like you've got it covered. I had a lot of preparation. But it's- Which I appreciate your time.
Yeah, right.
hospital matter, but we were mainly coming into the fact that given the current COVID situation, and again, fire emergency vehicles wouldn't be able to get to us. There would be added time if they have to go around Collins. So our safety and welfare was mainly our biggest concern right now.
And also that he just put it up and didn't tell anybody, so a police officer could come up the road and have to turn around and
Mhm.
put time to it. So
Right.
that's what our biggest concern was.
But we don't know how the whole situation took place. We learned after the barriers were already there. Whomever, either Mr. Lucia or not, just so it's well known, he knows we had deeded rights to our hole because we're at the very top and we needed emergency two-way exits.
So are you on Oak Hollow?
We're on,
But at the top?
we're the
We're on
last two houses
the
that Sam
last-
Ken built.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
And it's in our deed that we have the rights to use that road. He knows that, he's very well aware of that, and so is Mr. Aho and his family. So we're not certain how the whole thing began, but my concern was mainly the safety, and I do thank you guys for actually taking a good look into that, because it means a lot, especially now.
I was gonna ask if maybe if you could make contact with Mr. Lucier, because he
Yeah.
was the one that, back in, whenever it was, 2008, had brought this whole issue before the board. We had town council at the time review it. So if he's still at that residence, he was the one that was the point person. And it may be worth at least getting a call, and if he is the,
Yeah, he is one of the property owners.
Yeah.
currently. Yeah.
we could get the documentation to him or
Yeah.
to everybody, but and I would give them a very short window of time to remove them. And if not, have the highway department put them on a flatbed and take them out of there.
Agreed.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
It's going.
Salt shed RFP?
Right, so the salt shed RFP, I mean, last week I gave you basically the technical requirements for it, and those have not really changed, just some minor changes. I clarified the type of cement block foundation we intended to put in, as well as what the dimensions were gonna be, so that they understood what we were gonna put in place. At the very back is, the last page is an Exhibit A, which is the type of block that Peter has proposed using, which is the very last page under that tab, from Graves Concrete. And he's proposing using the 2x2x6 unfaced V-groove blocks, which is the second category down. And obviously, to get the dimensions he wants, they'd be using some other in that family of unfaced V-groove blocks to come up with the dimensions that we need. So that's clarified for the contractors that would be bidding on this. And honestly, the rest of what I've added to this is really the, kind of the terms and conditions, the insurance requirements, and that is quite lengthy, I won't kid you, that's, took an enormous amount of time to put that together, and honestly, I think for any project $50,000 and more, we should make this kind of our standard terms and conditions template moving forward. And again, consistency for everything we do, I think makes life a little easier. And I also put at the back of the spec section or the summary of work section that I put in a diagram asking them to put in their dimensions on what the structure was gonna look like. You know, the bid forms are in there, there's an indemnification form, a certification form that's required of the vendor to make sure that they are, the person signing has the authorization to obligate his company to this project, et cetera. And, you know, our indemnification agreement, and then just the notice of bid award, notice to proceed, you know, kind of the standard vanilla stuff you'd have. So all that, you know, added, you know, probably another 10 pages to this document, but it's all necessary. And,
I think we have things in here, and this is all new, so
Yep.
haven't read it.
Yep.
But as a contractor, the first thing that hit my eyes was the front page liquidated damages. I mean, we're looking for a salt shed here. I don't think that the town really has any damages that we would want to.
So, and one of the issues that we have, I think, is regardless of the type and size of project, there are certain things that we need to put in there to protect the town. And while, in most of these things, you know, have, they certainly have some impact on the contractor responding, but honestly, if they're not willing to agree to some of these terms to do this project, you know, I'd be concerned that we're not protecting ourselves adequately.
I'm not saying that they're,
Yeah.
all should be
Yes.
deleted, but there were certain items in here, you know, an energy compliance. This building will not meet any energy
Well,
compliance.
however, again, I wanna use this as a standard set of terms and conditions, and you know, if we're not putting anything in there that's Energy Star compliance, then obviously that wouldn't apply.
Then, I think rather than making this the front page of the invitation to bid, it should be entitled something to the effect of Town of New Ipswich standard terms and procedures, something that they can now say, okay, this is their boilerplate. It's not the smack in the front where your invitation to bid for the salt storage building would go. Just kind of reversing the order in the sequence.
Well, we could do that, I mean, we could break it out so that this is a terms and conditions page behind the bid specs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of my concerns with putting this out to bid at this point in time,
I was gonna ask, isn't our money for this coming from?
is coming from the funds we encumbered last year. And we had said that we were going to do the street lighting first, and the funds that were left over, we would put towards this, and then with the anticipation of this year's funds or the highway block grant
We would finish it.
to finish it off. I think the RFP for the street lighting should go out first. Or Scott's talking with other towns to find out what the order of magnitude is for a street light. Then maybe with that number, an order of magnitude on the street lighting, we might be able to estimate how much money would be left over from the funds we've encumbered, and then how much more money we would need this year.
Right.
We could go forth and put this out and not make an immediate award. I don't know if there's a, I believe I read in here a term.
Well,
But they would need
I
to
put some
hold-
dates in there,
Okay,
figuring that we'd get it out, get it started with the completion date targeted of September 30th.
But is there a date to say, subcontractors and vendors need to hold their, pricing for a period of 90 days?
180.
180, okay. So there's something in there that, within that time frame, we could.
Yeah.
And like I said, we don't have to make an immediate award for it either, right? Like to commit to it, even though we put it out to bid.
Correct. We don't need to.
Now, what drove the salt shed, like this project, to begin with?
Where the salt is now is not large enough to contain the materials that we need for our roads.
Mhm.
All we have is that little lean.
That wood.
Yes, that's it, and everything
Okay.
else is out there. And looking at, environmental considerations is that what we should do is have it enclosed.
Yeah.
So that's what led to it.
Okay. So it is necessary, so it would be good to still get it out to bid so that if the funds are available, like if everything shakes out the way it's supposed to, then we can start on it, before next winter. Like get it done before next winter.
If we have the funds.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
it'd be important to still put it
Yeah.
out to bid to, find that contractor and just let them know.
And, I mean, we can certainly, get the streetlight RFP out probably within the next couple of weeks. I mean, that's, probably 85% done at this point. And get that out first, and, then put this out. We can adjust the dates on this accordingly.
Yep.
And, because otherwise, if we wait too late on this, it's just because of the construction season, we risk it falling into next spring.
I think on a salt shed, we can bank on year round.
Yeah,
It's nothing that's gonna,
yeah, the winter
Into
won't,
that, no.
impact it.
no. And matter of fact, I'd like at least till next week to review everything that you've
Yep.
put in there. So I don't think we kill it by another week.
Okay.
And then
Yeah,
just,
no.
and then put it out and
Yep.
wait.
And then like that, like the opening pages, like all the different clauses and things.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to add that part to it?
So, you have to have some standard terms and conditions when you go, especially when you start going after larger projects like this, that kind of $50,000 and up, is you have to put things in here to clarify what your terms are. And most of these are common sense things. I mean, a contractor's gonna look at this, they're not gonna be unfamiliar with any of these terms. There's nothing in here that's so onerous, other than, some might not like, the insurance requirements, bid bond, payment bond, type of requirements, but honestly, to protect the town, I think you have to have them in there.
Yep.
Because you can get burnt, and let's face it, I mean, you don't have to go too far to find, people, and towns that have been burned by contractors who started a project, ran out of money, and filed chapter 11 in the middle of your project and walked away.
Yeah.
You got a half-finished project and you have no bond to retrieve to gather the funding to finish your project. So buying some insurance to avoid that, and, I think is important. And honestly, even if we were going to buy a new fire truck for $400,000, I would want, the vendor to probably get a performance bond in there. We had a town close by to us that got burned, just over the border. They got burned on a fire truck, and the company ran into cash flow problems. The town fronted them the rest of the money. In other words, they paid for the entire truck before it was actually delivered to help the company out. The company still went under, and they never got their truck.
Well, there was problem one, and so we
Right.
shouldn't be getting ourselves into that.
Right.
And we shouldn't be paying any part of a construction contract until the,
Correct, but what happens is, if you have somebody that starts the project and then says, I can't finish it, I don't have the means to finish it. And, you know, you don't have a bid bond to claim so that you can then pay somebody else to finish the rest of it.
But as long as you have not paid them, you still are whole,
In theory, yes.
in fact.
Well, except that you've invested time. You've invested DPW labor, you've invested, you know, whatever Peter has done up until that point.
But
As
that's not
minimal as it may
covered by
be.
the bid bond, or a performance and payment bond.
No, but you have an investment. In other words, the town still has a level of investment there.
If
For-
we contract out for a salt shed,
Right,
$50,000.
yeah,
And someone's the low bid, we make an award to them.
yeah,
Two scenarios. We spoke last week about the town purchasing the material and hiring for the erecting of the product,
mhm,
or go with a performance and payment bond.
yeah,
So then they're gonna start erecting the building. We're not giving them any money up front.
mhm,
Once they have the building erected, then we're going to pay them. If they come back then after that and say, well, we have no more money, well, we've only paid them for the work that's been completed and in place.
right.
Are we missing something?
So, but there are still reasons why you would still want to have a performance bond to protect yourself.
I only because I mean, and I'm sure you've seen it where someone does that, get to a point, then you have to go in, or your company has to go in and fix it, and you can't. So they bid 50,000, town agrees on 50,000. Now you come in and you go, well, I can't do it for 50,000. It's going to take me 65 because it's going to take me 15 to fix this, then the 50 to do the job. I think at that point, yes, it covers us for, you know, some expenses that all of a sudden we're now between 50 and 65. So I understand Scott's point is that, you know, it covers us for in case there's an issue where we haven't paid them anything, but now it's going to cost us more money to fix their mistakes.
But if they're mistakes, you're not going to accept the building and pay them for it.
I didn't say we paid them for it. They bid 50, we budget 50, you know, we award 50.
Yeah?
They do a third of the job, say, you know what, we're going under, we can't complete this job. We haven't paid them anything. Company B now comes in and we go, hey, you were the second, so we're looking at you. And they look at you and go, yeah, I can't do it for 50. I'm doing it for 65. Okay? So the bond, you know, I'm assuming would give us some sort of coverage on.
The $50,000, not the $65,000.
No, I understand that, but we now have to pay Company B 65 to fix the mistakes, then start the $50,000 job. So don't we have we have no recourse on Company A for screwing up and bailing out?
No, if they bailed out, the bonding company would come and complete that project, okay? At their cost, not the town's cost. So if the contractor was doing the work with no performance and payment bond and hadn't been paid and says halfway through, I can't finish it. Well, that's well and fine, then we bring in contractor B. And if he's gonna put up a $65,000 building, then the town owns the extra $15,000, because that's what you received in the bids.
Okay.
To me, I'm just looking at it to say, we can buy that extra insurance, which is what the performance and payment bond is. I know in experience, trying to collect that from a bonding company, you need to be sure exactly what it is that you've agreed to in the contract. Because if he's done everything that he says he was going to do, then that's all they're bonding, is that performance, and that they make the payment, you know, labor and whatnot. So, I mean, on this year, we're probably talking 10 grand. Probably be about 2% if we're on a $50,000. No, 10 grand's not right, that's
Yeah,
20%,
yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
2% works out to. So,
I understand. I think having a standard piece is a good thing, and then if you don't want to have it apply to a contract, you take it out of that
Mhm.
one bid.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
I think Scott's right. Having something that's kind of boilerplate, and we can go, well, this doesn't have to apply to this bid.
Yeah.
But I like having something here to cover us.
and I agree, that's good, but it should be, just like anything else, terms and conditions are
Yeah.
after.
Yeah,
In
we can
really
write
fine
it
print.
whatever
Yeah.
you like.
Yep,
And you go, everyone just clicks, I read it, and
And I liked it. I just was wondering because we hadn't discussed like the first, like adding something like this
Mhm.
last week. So I was gonna say thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, for taking the time to go through and do it. Had you sent that out electronically? That one?
I had not,
Okay. Okay.
honestly.
I was just making sure I didn't miss something. Or
Honestly, I've been scrambling this week to get all sorts of things put together.
Yep.
You know. It's been a couple of long days and a short weekend. So that's just old stuff that's in there
Okay.
from last week. Yeah, so we're on new and old business.
yes.
And with Lyndon Langeal resigning as treasurer, we need to fill that slot. Carlene has expressed some interest in the slot. And, you know, my thought is to appoint Carlene on an interim basis and see how it works. And, or appoint her on an interim basis and try to solicit other candidates as well, and then evaluate before making a final appointment. And that's kind of where my thought is on that.
I think appointing on an interim basis, and solicit for, interim, and then look where we are. Only because we have brought that office to a level that's operating differently than it has. I feel it's just as new, the way it's operating is just as new to Carlene as it is to anyone else in the office. So I think appointing on an interim, and then looking to review, I don't know, 60 days, whatever you feel is comfortable, and seeing how it's working, and then making a decision on whether we solicit for a full replacement, or
Mhm.
appoint Carlene at that time, I think is the way to go.
I think what I'd like to see is have her appointed on an interim basis and see how she performs, because I
Mhm.
think she is well-versed in the changes that have taken place. And before we consider going out to solicit for a town resident for that appointment, maybe we consider I'm drawing a blank on Joanne's last name, but the person we use for the
Okay, so bring
Joanne
Joanne
Smith.
do,
Smith, thank you,
to do some training.
to do some training or seeking advice. Hey, maybe you should try doing this. And I think overall, I'd rather see a person in that position that has been there and provide them with the support to handle that position, rather than bringing in somebody new, only with the concern of bringing them up to speed with the operation. And maybe we were fortunate and get somebody like Linda that was already well-versed.
Right, I mean,
You know.
that's, I mean, I guess Linda's an example of going outside and
Yeah.
finding an extraordinary candidate. And,
But we found that because she came knocking,
well, correct,
which was
Yeah.
a blessing.
but nonetheless, we don't know what's out there
Yeah.
for skill sets, and you know, I think it might be worth exploring at some time, but I have no problem leveraging Joanne Smith through Stonehill Consulting
Yeah.
to see if she can help out, because Joanne is crackerjack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do want to thank Linda Langill, although it was a short term, the time that she was here, sounds like she made great strides in
She did.
improving that.
In a very
And,
short period of time.
I'd like to thank her for that.
She did an extraordinary amount of work in simplifying things, streamlining things, and, you know, we're benefiting from it every day.
Excellent. I can go with,
You
yeah,
good with that?
yes, yep, yeah. I like your approach.
Okay, can I have a motion and a vote on exactly what interim term you want to do?
Motion to appoint Carleen Wardwell as interim town treasurer. And if need be, bringing in Joanne Smith to help train and counsel prior to us looking for a replacement town treasurer.
I'd like to
Amend.
amend it just to say for 90
Mhm.
days.
Okay,
90
Okay.
days is good.
and I'm assuming that was at the same rate of compensation as Linda?
No, not for the 90 days. I would say, without having the sheets in front of me, somewhere in between, because she's not,
I would say prior to the change. Did we just make a change?
We made a change to both positions.
but the previous
Right,
treasurer's rate,
Right.
was,
Yeah.
I think 14.5.
somewhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so old rate?
Yes. Old
Okay.
treasurer rate.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, I might have it right here. Hang on. That's weird, fumbling around. Just realized I had it. So, yeah, it was 14.5 was the annual stipend. And we had just increased it for Linda to something higher.
second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The only thing I have under new business are 2 items, Scott. first, did we, I didn't see anything in the folder, formalize an agreement on the purchase of the loader?
Not yet. I wanna get with Peter and go down and visit with them,
Okay,
so I have a full understanding of what it is we're getting and, see if we can maybe sharpen the pencil, as they say.
okay. And the second question is, has Peter, determined an estimate for the cost of the paving?
No, so we just finalized the bid. I'm hoping that he's gonna have that out in the next 24 to 48 hours to the paving contractors.
Before we normally put it out to bid, he's done an estimate to confirm what he's putting out to
And
bid.
he may have that number for me tomorrow,
Okay,
because we spent, yesterday and part of this morning kinda tweaking that bid spec.
okay,
So I think it's ready to go. And he was gonna try to get me some estimates, so I'm hoping by the time he comes to the staff meeting tomorrow morning, he'll have those numbers for me.
can you forward that to us?
Yep.
Along with the bid invitation?
Yep.
I do have one more thing.
Okay.
At your staff meeting tomorrow,
Yep.
would you ask, I don't know if it's Peter Remark, who's ever in charge of it,
Yeah.
to adjust the time clock on the park lights? They're on still at 6 o'clock or whatever.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if that switch has to be changed out, cause they always kinda have a mind of their own, cause they'll go down and make adjustments, and it's good for a little bit of time,
Mhm.
and then it's all out of whack again.
So
It seems like, to me, like it's like inconsistent.
do we
well,
need
it's,
to,
I'm not sure it's inconsistent. I'm gonna guess that they have the old time clock where you set it for, say, 7 o'clock for the
Yeah.
lights to turn on, and then you have daylight savings now that at 8:30 it's still light out. Well, they don't go back and reset it again. Whereas in the winter, 7 o'clock, it's too late. They should be on earlier.
But we had,
Mark can look
yeah,
at
but
it.
we had talked about it where I drove past at like 10:30 at night and the lights were still on the basketball court.
I've heard all sorts of stuff like out of
Yeah.
whack at 1 o'clock in the morning that they're on, and then, you know, I get text messages and calls that, hey, how come they're not on at 8? And I don't know.
Control box a problem maybe?
Well, I
Yeah.
think the easy solution there is have Mark look at it, get a price
Yeah.
to put it to a photocell on, time clock off,
Yeah.
yeah,
you know,
yeah, I think that'd be good.
that way there's,
And then we don't have the wasted
right.
energy, cause those are those old
Well, I was down there last
bulbs.
evening and
Yeah.
I'm seeing lights are on and it's 6 o'clock. It's like,
It was funny last night, cause then, my son and his friends went down when it was dark and they weren't on.
oh, these weren't the ones at the court.
Oh,
These were
alright.
the two by the volleyball court, the pool house.
Oh, the pool house,
Yeah.
yeah. Alright, but yeah, so the ones down at the court weren't on.
Yeah, I didn't,
They were the,
yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
those were on.
so the ones, it's the control box, the one that I'm talking about was the one by the basketball court, seems to be the most all over the board. And I kinda looked at it and it's kinda beat up, that box too, and that controller, so be a good one to check out.
I was contacted by a parent of one of the seniors at the high school.
Yeah.
And they asked me to bring it up. I told them at some point if they're going to want to do it, they're going to have to set an actual appointment with Scott and bring formal information. But I'll show you a picture. So there are towns that are doing pictures or banners on the poles for seniors, specifically this year because of they're not getting graduation, or they have yet to figure out if they're getting a real graduation. Okay. So, my first
I'll hang
comment.
on to it.
Yeah, my first. You may not want to. My first comment, because they said they may start at the high school, go up the hill, start the high school, go down the hill, so it would go out two directions from the high school. My first comment that I made was that it can interfere with current poles that we already have something on downtown. Meaning, it can't replace or get in the way of the ones that we put the flags on, which are going to go up, I'm assuming, by May 17th. They're normally up the week of our normal Memorial Day celebration. Even though we're not doing the celebration, I'm assuming the flags are going to go up. The Purple Heart flags will go back up, things like that. So I said that's number one. Is if it comes down the hill, it can't interfere with those. So it would have to be either at a different height or different poles. But then, obviously the cost is who's paying for it, who's paying for installation, all these different pieces have to be answered. I just told them I'd bring it up. That way, if either of you had a completely no freaking way are these going up on the poles, I would just go, hey, because the other piece I said is if it were to be a no freaking way are these going up, they could they should be talking to the school to see if they could put it, because you look on in this picture, some of those are on metal poles, so they're not even on wooden poles, they're on the metal light poles. So it would be one of those things they could put up brackets that would remain on the metal light poles at Highbridge Hill and Messinic permanently, and then if every year the parents want to pay to have their kid's banner put up, they can buy a banner and it'll go on a pole. Because they're looking, so they have 76 seniors.
Yeah.
So it's either 76 light poles or utility poles or 38 poles, and they got to double it and hope that the sun doesn't mess up the picture.
How would you do it with 36?
38.
38? How would you do that?
One on one side, one on the other. So you would have
Oh.
one senior on one side and one senior on another
I
side.
see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's either going to be 76 poles or 38 poles, but it's so. I told her I'd bring it up. That way, you just have an idea that this is a thought that is going out there, and if you have serious concerns or what your concerns are, that I would at least make sure that they can start to address those.
I like the idea, because then it on the main road, it's like a normally traveled path, so you're not promoting people getting together in a parking lot or driving around the schools or walking around like that area, and it kind of spreads it out a bit. As to know about the implementation part of it.
I think it's a good idea, something deserved if the students haven't been able to have, proms and graduations. The two items other than what you mentioned that I would like to have them address is how long will they be up for? And B, they will need to get the approval from the utility company, because we can't grant them that approval.
It'd be nice if the utility company would even go in and put the brackets on, like Yeah.
I'm gonna venture a guess that they won't.
No.
And that was similar to the request. Didn't we get a request no, Rep. Molino had mentioned about that.
Yeah, about
The one for the veterans.
veterans or active military, things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
And that's what I'm presuming, because I think your photo was very similar to
Yeah, it was.
that.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's the same company that kind of does it. And they had one for was for 2 different towns. There was one in Holston. I don't know where Holston is. But then the other one was in the city of Davis. Again, not sure where that is.
Mhm.
But yeah, one is a little more relaxed than the other. The one that I showed you shows their actual senior pictures, something like, and then the other one it looks like they get to kind of pick what they want, whether it's or they just put up their track and field photos because that's what was up. They were state champs or something, but that's what the other picture is. But it's the same thing. It's just down the street with the double flags. So, all right, I will. I will pass all that information along and tell them if they do want to come in or they have that information to set an appointment,
Okay,
whether it be to come in or schedule a Zoom meeting for whoever that representative is,
okay,
if we're not meeting in
Right.
person yet.
okay.
Thank you.
If I recall, didn't Rep. Molino say on the ones for the veterans, there was a company that did the graphics and they actually installed it and removed them? I thought he said every year they would be
I think,
doing something.
yeah, I think that was one of the things that if you, part of the money you put out, whether it's a yearly contract or whether it's a one time and then you have to pay if one of them gets destroyed or you have to add one or whatever, I
Okay.
don't know.
Any other new business or old business?
Yeah, so this, we talked about the Gordon Services proposal last week. And there was actually a quote they did for us last fall to do a little work out front here because we got the dead bushes and a few things that need some attention. And they gave us a quote on, if we remove those junipers out there, they'll replace them with two lilacs, and they'll reseed and loom kind of that area out there. Kind of got dug up. In fact, we just had some work done on the lights out there, so there was some disruption out there as well. And that, and there's the planter out there that's under the sign. And so to install the lilacs, reseed kind of the semicircle and loam and seed the area, and fill the planter with annuals would be about $800 additional.
I'd forego that. I mean, I'd volunteer to go out there and plant bushes if the town wants to buy. I mean, $800, you can get a lot of landscaping done.
Yeah,
And last year, I thought we paid them, I know we did, to put in, I thought it was perennials that are there now, because the yews that were there got pulled out,
yeah.
so.
All right, so you'd rather just have Mark kind of pull out the stuff that's there, go to a garden center
Or
and
I'd
pick up some.
volunteer to do it myself, I did the ones
I
at
gotta
the
start
town
writing
sign.
this down. Your
I did the ones at the
volunteers.
town.
I think there was something
What do you
last
think
week.
of the ones at the town signs? Have you noticed?
They're beautiful.
I thought so. I mean, for 2 hours worth of work, it's,
Yeah, I'm just asking.
I would be more than happy to take that
Can we go
on.
to garden centers? Are those essential right now?
Not if you're in Michigan.
That's a Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, is that the place you can't even go
You can't-
fishing? You can't go out in your boat?
You can if it's a kayak, but if it's a motorboat.
Yes, yeah.
Right, and you
Yeah.
can't buy seeds, so if you wanna grow a vegetable garden, you
I-
can't buy seeds.
Yeah,
Right,
I did find it funny. They
or a
were
gallon of paint.
they were mad at people the other day. I do. There's some of the ones I don't understand. So you can go to Walmart and you can have like 150 people jammed inside a Walmart or a Market Basket, and I understand there. I mean, you need stuff, and I get that, but they were going out and citing people for being on the golf courses the other day. Like
Oh, yeah.
one guy by himself with a pull cart. I'll let you know, I'm not good at golf. I enjoy this. I am never near anybody. I'm out in the woods all by myself. Basically, I'm on a nature hike, so I'm fine.
Carrying a 9-iron.
Exactly.
That was one of the guys' comments. I'm only out for a walk.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
So Tom Brady got cited in down in
Yes,
Tampa
I
for
heard
being in the
that
park
did he? Yeah,
by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just find it, some of the things that it is a little weird. Like so I get it. So you make them walk. You can't have a cart. It means you can't ride with somebody else. You got to have a cart and you walk out and you stay 13 feet away from each other. Trust me, not a problem for me. I'm going side to side across the fairway. Fairway. I don't even. I see these guys complain about their shot on the TV. Oh, I'm in the rough. I'm like, I can hit that.
Lots of experience.
Yeah, you put that thing on flat grass. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a beaver tail like that, and I'm gonna miss the ball. That's what's gonna happen.
Oh, our EMD.
Yep, she's pretty much all set. Still haven't received her information in the mail, although she did email me again yesterday saying it's on the way, and then it's just a matter of when we can, physically get together and kind of get things going with her. So, but she's anxious to get going. So.
Awesome. Did I hear that we ended up having to consult counsel on payment of one of our employees for quarantine?
Was on the phone a few times today with the U.S. Department of Labor, and we're kind of working out those details.
Okay.
Hopefully by tomorrow morning we'll have clear direction on what we need to do.
It'll be nice and cloudy for you, right?
Well, we went back and forth with the documents we were given initially,
Right.
and I'm reading them their own documents, and I'm saying, I don't see where we're in the wrong here.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I said, oh yeah, but that's not the whole document, you only have, the summary.
But-
That's what you sent us.
Right.
That's what employers are making decisions on, is what you sent us.
Wow.
We can't go through a 2,000-page document.
Right.
Especially for a temporary situation,
Yeah.
But I think we're getting there.
Okay.
Good. Good. You have anything?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.